Welcome to Warblog. This video is an introduction to the general state of the game mechanics as of early February 2016. It's really just to give you an idea of what you can do at the moment. It's clearly a game in beta development, which means it sort of works, but there's a ton of things that need to be done on top. Now, I've been playing it for a while, and I'm not so fussed about little weebles here and there, but there probably are a few. Now, essentially, once you've signed up and paid all your money, and then logged in, you'll see a welcome thing up here. Instead of log in, it will say welcome, and then have your email address when I sort that out. You can't play live with other people at the moment, but in theory, you'll then be able to say, you'll be able to add someone else's IP address, and then they will be able to respond at the other end with a sort of equal game interface. There won't be any live, they won't be able to see units moving around. I might put a Java timer in there, but basically they'll have to refresh the page, and once you said I've done my move, they'll refresh their page. Anyway, so when you want to start a game, press play now, and it takes you through to the game environment. It says current player, rebels, and gives you a list of the rebel forces, which you can see there. Rebels are not going to move on this turn, so they press end turn. So it's really designed for sort of solitary play at the moment. Now, the movement. You can see movement points in the rules. At the bottom of the rules there's a terrain table that tells you how much terrain costs, and I will just quickly go there for you. You go to rules, all the way down to terrain, and then you can see that, for example, agricultural infantry movement is 2, artillery movement 2, and desert infantry movement 2, artillery movement 2. Things like motorized, it's 1. That's a double bonus for motorized, because if they've got 6 movement points, they get to go 6 places, whereas the infantry pretty much restricted to 1 space at a time. So whether that's right or not, that's something else. I can adjust that later. So essentially, to move, it's very simple. You just grab the unit there and move it, and it's moved 2, so you can't afford to move into there, so it's fairly slow going. Again, artillery. And that's their move. Now they do have some air power, so I'm going to plonk that in there because I want to attack these units. Now this is a common interface to all battles. That was I gained 3 depressions on that unit. Attack this unit. So essentially, the game mechanics are drag and drop, making it a very simple, easy to use interface. I mean, that was a defender retreat, so I again created significant casualties on this unit. It's down to 3 depressions. So that was 2 successful attacks with the Russian air power. Well, in that turn, the rebels not going to do anything, and so it's back to the Syrian armed forces, and again they're staggeringly slow 1 hex. Now, if they're moving on the road, they can move 3. So if they started there, they could have gone 1, 2, 3. And road hexes do work. It's just in this scenario, there's no road hex going in that direction. So they essentially are going across country, and it's slow for them. Whether or not it's exactly as it should be, whether the movement should be 1.5, giving them at least 2 hexes to move, that's something else just as a sort of already inferred. So again, now he's got, this is artillery unit. 1, 2, 3, 4. He can actually fire now on that because he's in range. So when you open that up, you get your combat environment. Now this is the target hex. These are all my units in the surrounding the hex. There's none. But remote, indirect fire, I have 1 artillery piece, so I will attack. Now the odds were 1 to 3, and I got an attacker eliminated, but because I'm artillery, it doesn't affect me. So back to the game, that was no effect. And I will fly my aircraft into there. I'm doing 1 on each because it seems to be a little more effective. That was attack a retreat, so that was actually no effect on that unit. And here, well, that was actually a defender retreat, so that was a good result. So he's now on depression 6, depressions 3, so he's at 40%, he's at 70%, so this unit's pretty knackered. End the turn. The rebels are not going to do anything. Move into the next turn. Now, as I'm trying to sort of focus on explaining the rules, go to another thing. You can stack units up. They will only visibly show up to 4 in a stack, and then to go through the stack, you would just double click. So as you can see here with the mouse, I'm double clicking on this stack, and there's 2 units in it, and so it's alternating through the stack of 2 units. If you did the same thing on this stack, there would appear to be no difference because the image is the same, and same with these. There are some maybe little issues with large stacks. If I had 20 units in there, all the same, it would be quite hard to figure out how many units I've actually got in there. But you shouldn't really be stacking that high. You can actually move them all out. It doesn't mean that they don't exist. It's just a little harder to remember how many you've got in a stack. But that's something else. So again, moving forward. A couple of airstrikes. Now, I'm trying to sort of, again, that was a defender retreat, so that's a really good result. Attack. So now we have fairly hefty depressions on these units. Depression 9, depression 6. Fire my artillery into there. Attack a retreat, no effect. That was firing in there at 1 to 2 odds. So the odds sort of pretty much work out. Just fairly common wargaming type results. So essentially, we've sort of covered terrain a little bit. You can look the terrain up on in the terrain table. Find out the movement points. The movement points are specific to the units. Some units just can't go into certain types of terrain. Some units have much better terrain movement rates, etc., etc. Covered in stacking, unit types. There's all sorts of unit types that we specified in the sort of belligerent list, below or to the side, depending on which part of the game, whether it's the overview or you're actually in the game itself. So again, end turn. Through things quickly to give you an idea of how it all works. And air power. Now, there is no implicit morale in this game. Whether or not that's ideal is just something else, really. For example, this unit is now at depression 10, and this is depression 7. Now that's basically almost 100% gone. You would have thought it might rout, but essentially I'm working on the assumption that the depression rates are sort of almost that. They're not necessarily casualty rates. They're just a measure of the degree of disorganisation and confusion that they're in. It could be all completely, well. If they get eliminated, they rout. They could very well rally off board and come back onto the map. I don't have those sorts of rules, but that's the theory. This is not Napoleonic rules where there are 1,500 people dead. Probably, a certain percentage of the people are just sort of like, not really too keen on fighting anymore. It's designed to be simple. Whether or not you think, oh, that's not realistic, how can you have a war game about morale or leadership or supply chains? Well, that's how it is at the moment. Some of these things I will be thinking about bringing in, but in these sorts of situations, you do wonder why they're still there. But at the same time, so we'll fire this artillery into there. So that was an exchange. No effect on my artillery, but the ISIS unit is now at fatigue 8. So in that turn, come back into here. So essentially now we're moving into close combat. Now what's happening here is, although I've only got 3 movement points, I'm moving into a zone of control. So I will not actually be able to move. If I was motorized, once I moved into there, I stop. Now I can still fight if I've still got some movement. If movement into this space had resulted in me having 0 movement points left, I would not be able to engage in an attack on this hex. But because I've essentially got look at the mouse over on it, because I've essentially got 1 movement point left, because I was in there, 1, 2, I've still got 3 movements, I've got 1 left. I can engage in an attack here. I'm not going to move this unit. I'll move him there and him there. Now I could launch an assault into there. Now, to be quite honest, that might be okay. Let me just go in there and do the air assaults. And now that was a defender retreat, so these people are pretty much going to be about as reduced as they can be. Once they get to 10 depressions, so that was an exchange, it doesn't really matter. Once they get to 10 depressions, they're at 0.1. So this unit, there's 2 of those, so it's 4. They're entrenched, which doubles them to 8, and they're in dense urban, which triples them 16, 24. But times 0.1 puts them to 2.4, so they're only worth 2.4. They're now not worth very much, and the same here, because their depression factor is 11. The depression factor is 11 as well, but it's basically as low as you get the lowest factor on that. So all I have to do is beat 2.4 with my 6 plus my artillery in here. I've pretty much got some good factors there, so I'm just going to go for it. Now, when you do an attack, I'll just go back there. To attack a hex, you just use the mouse and just move the unit into the hex, and then you select that unit. He'll be able to advance into there. This unit can contribute to the attack because he's within 4 range, but he won't be able to advance. And then we attack. Now that was actually at 5 to 1 odds, and I've got an exchange. Now that's an interesting result because it does go to demonstrate how resilient forces can be, especially when they're in built-up areas. And I think the resilient nature so far of the sort of the result matrix. I have sort of done it so that no matter what the odds, both ends of sort of situation, both ends of the die roll can come out either way, even against the greatest odds. It's pretty much a 1 to 12 die roll. You can't. I don't think you can get an attacker eliminated when you've got sort of 7 to 1 odds, but you can get no result. They can defend, so you can have small units completely knackered that will pull out amazing results. And in this case, there was an exchange. So this unit is now at fatigue level 1. However, these levels are fatigue level 12. They're worth nothing, but so I should have won really at 5 to 1 odds. But anyway, so next turn. Now, the air sorties have now, well, they're not going to do anything. The air sorties have now run out. I only had 5 air sorties, so I've not got any more air power left. I can move him. Well, I can move him there, and go for another attack. Now, because I've got flanking now, I've got +1 extra hex. That gives me 0.1. It gives me 10% more on my attack. So now I've got a lot more going in there. And I've got a defender eliminated, which is pretty much what I should have got before. And my units all advance into there. Now I'm not going to follow onto that hex because it will be rushing things. As you can see, the game pretty much has its own flow. It's fairly workable. Lots of little things I'd like to add, like minefields, bridge laying, quite a lot. There's a list in the about page that says details of things that I want to include. Basically, it's got a fairly reasonable combat system. The movement's fairly dynamic, fluid, and it's ready for play at a reduced rate at the moment. So if you're interested, just sign up, and have fun.